Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll get started, and we have got Cherie Rogers with us, the head of our talent acquisition team here this evening, supporting people through the lobby. And thank you, Cherie, for changing the slides for us all this evening so we can present. But a huge welcome to everybody this evening. We are so excited to bring to you just before Christmas. We're very, very excited about our evolved early childhood support program. And tonight's event is to really look at what does it involve to be a childhood practitioner at Everyday Independence. We are absolutely passionate about changing the game for children and families, but actually what that means for, if you change the game for children and families, you can actually change the game for whole communities. So we hope to showcase for you tonight what it could mean for you to work in our early childhood support program at Everyday Independence. So before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. I'd really like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as the first people of Australia. Now I'm going to tell you our why. This is the second thing that we always talk about at Everyday Independence. It's almost a ritual when we meet, but it's what drives our everyday, which is our why. So every day we strive to lead and support individuals, their families, communities, and our nation to become global leaders for inclusion. And at Everyday Independence, everybody that works at Everyday Independence really starts their day with our why. And I hope that you can see how this is really embedded throughout our organisation. And certainly there's no program that perhaps is more representative of our why than our early childhood support program. The other thing that drives our why is our values. So our values are, and you're going to learn about it tonight, are deeply embedded in a social model. Our values really are the first principles that drive the way that we grow and evolve and the services that we deliver as our organisation. So whether you are a participant utilising the Everyday Independence services, perhaps a family member or a community that supports a participant that utilises the services of Everyday Independence, or if you're an employee at Everyday Independence, these values really apply to everybody. They really do apply to all stakeholders. We believe that everybody is wanting to learn, everybody is wanting to build confidence, everybody is wanting to develop skills. So we really do embed these values in everything that we do. And I think you'll see really tremendous examples of that tonight. So if I talk about just one example, inspire with belief. We think that it is really exciting to be able to say to a child now with NDIS supports, what would you like to be when you grow up? And we can work with that family and that child to build and scaffold the supports that they need to really realise their potential. And pre-NDIS, it was really difficult to say to a child or a family, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because they didn't necessarily have the reasonable and necessary supports to be able to support them to do that. So our early childhood support program utilises NDIS funding to support children and families to dream big, but to also dream of a normal future that everybody has the right to pursue. And I'm hoping that you'll see some of that tonight and perhaps see what the opportunity might be for you to be a part of that. So I won't go through each value, but certainly I hope you see those embedded tonight. And I think the really exciting thing about our early childhood support service is that we are now making an impact nationally. So we do work in every state of Australia with multiple hubs in each state. We have 40 hubs across all 6 states and now approaching approximately 900 employees. So we really are passionate about building a workforce that is fit for the future to serve children and families across our nation. We hope that children that are born today have the opportunity to grow, develop, and to pursue all the things that parents dream of for their children, to have a relationship if they want to be in employment, and to really be able to do those things that they are passionate about. So we're hoping to support families to access services sooner, to access services that are value for money, and to access services that are evidence-based and fit for purpose. So that's, again, really the premise behind our early childhood support program that we're hoping to showcase for you this evening. So enough from me. I have got an incredible group of speakers tonight. We have a panel, which is Mel Thompson and Amelia, and I will introduce them to you in a moment, but we're going to start with Leanne Healy. Leanne Healy is the founder of Everyday Independence, which started back in 1997. So it's been a while now, Leanne. She is now also the current CEO. But I think every time I ask Leanne, how should I describe you? I think first and foremost, she certainly is an OT and a disability enthusiast and practitioner. So Leanne, we're going to actually ask you to perhaps share with us this evening, in terms of opening this event, why has Everyday Independence so passionately pursued an early childhood support model? And what does this mean broadly for our communities and Everyday Independence? And really, I'm just opening it up to you to share with us, what do you think might be relevant for our audience to hear about tonight?
Oh, what a great introduction. Thank you, Ingrid. So one of the things that I love about Everyday Independence is that we always start with our eyes out. And we come in and we look at what we have to do to make things work, but we really start with our eyes out. And I wanted to share a couple of stats with you first of all. So in Australia, 1 in 5 children have disability or developmental concerns, and this number has been really stable over the last 12 years, and that is despite a whole lot of funding going into supporting children with a disability. So that number isn't changing, and the prevalence of this rate goes all the way through a child's educational journey. So what we're finding is that within the educational system, that 20% of students are requiring some sort of educational adjustment due to disability. So it kind of makes you think, oh, I wonder how impactful our early intervention is. So that, that was one of the key questions that we had that we wanted to answer. So there's currently 145,000 children who are under the age of 9 that are participants of the NDIS, and which is about 5% of all children under the age of 9 that are currently on the NDIS. And, we've probably, I don't know if for those of you that have listened to Minister Shorten this week, but the NDIS certainly didn't expect as many children to be on the scheme as has come onto the scheme. So what we find is that children with disability and developmental concerns are less likely to access early childhood education and care. They experience difficulty transitioning to school, often face barriers accessing school, and find it really challenging to maintain school enrollments. So if we look at all of those factors and we want people to thrive, that is the area where we need to really focus our interventions. We also know that the families of children with a disability are more likely to experience stress and increased demands on their time and their well-being. And at Everyday Independence, we see families that are isolated, they're exhausted, they're often anxious, and they're stressed. So we need to do better, as an organisation, but also as a sector. This is where we need to focus our energies, and this is the reason why we're so passionate about providing evidence-based intervention in early years. So what does best practice and what's the best approach? It was a really tough question, and one that we landed on quite a few years ago. Even back as far as 2014, we were really looking at what is the best approach. And we know that the best approach has to be one that is about inclusion, and inclusion for children and families in everyday settings, that's setting the foundations so that children and family can thrive, whether you're there as an allied health professional or a key worker or an educator or not. You want families to just thrive, children to grow and to learn and to be able to go to school and stay in school. We think it's really important for families to be able to understand the abilities and the potential of their children. And many of you might think, isn't that a given? Don't families understand the potential and the positive abilities and capabilities of their children? But we often find that that is just not the case. And that's often the place where we need to start. And I'm sure that Mel and Amelia will be able to talk about the wonderful work they do there in more detail. But it's really about building confidence and capacity of families to manage and respond to their children's need without this reliance on allied health professionals and educators. You know, they're the ones that need to have the confidence and to be able to participate in all sorts of activities in and out of the home and not isolate themselves. And they need an ecosystem of support around them, not just to support an ecosystem of professionals, but they actually need an ecosystem of family and friends and neighbours and sporting organisations. You know, takes a village. So that is what best practice looks like. So we know what best practice needs to achieve. One of the tricky things is, okay, so in an organisation, how do you actually make that work? And I think that what you'll see if you look at different organisations, there's probably three main approaches that organisations take. So the first approach is what we call a multidisciplinary approach, where there's a whole group of individuals, allied health professionals, speech, physio, OT, that work independently with the family and have minimal interaction with each other. There's lots of appointments and each discipline has their own goal and they work fairly autonomously of each other. So that's not best practice. That's not the approach we take. We think there's a lack of coordination. There's a high risk of inconsistency. Family are exhausted. There's just way too many appointments and often the children don't thrive and progress because of the different professionals working in isolation. There is another approach called an interdisciplinary approach, and the individuals have team goals and they work as a team, but they still tend to go in and work in an individual way, even though they're working on a whole plan, a whole family plan. They tend to still have child-focused sessions. So a lot of the sessions is I'm going in and I'm going to work with the child. And maybe at the end of the session, I might talk to the family or the start and the end of the session. But the session really is very child-focused. And often it's in quite a small number of settings. So occasionally it might be home, it might be largely school-based. But you tend to see that the settings are not representative of the entire week or the entire routine. So we offer what's called a key worker model, and it is evidence. The evidence suggests it is the best way to work with families. In that key worker model, there's a team of people, and the team is wrapped around families. And there is a key person in that team, and that team member is called a key worker. And that key worker is the main point of contact for the family and has the strongest relationship and has a very supportive partnership with the family and the child, and works with the child across all of their routines and their habits, and really focusing on working with families and building confidence and building support networks. The key worker does work with the child to develop skill and confidence and capacity. And there are other allied health professionals that come in and also work with the child and family, but they will it will be the key worker that coordinates the allied health professional coming in, will really coordinate what the allied health professional focuses on, and will take the information from the allied health professional and help implement those strategies into everyday routines and activities. We also have a habit coach, which is an allied health assistant, which also works with the team to reinforce the principles across a range of settings and at different times of the day. So often they're going in before early in the morning for the morning routine and later at night for the evening routine. So that's a bit of a snapshot, and we can hear from Amelia and Mel about how that works in practice and what some of our families say the difference is working under a key worker model as opposed to some of the other models of intervention that they may have worked within.
Leanne, thank you very much. I think that's a really great summary, and I think this slide in particular perhaps really speaks to what the team is going to look like, which I know you and many members of the Everyday Independence clinical strategy team and early childhood teams have developed, which is just a further evolution, isn't it, really, in terms of what it's going to look like in 2024. And I think that the beauty of it has been is how you've been able to look at children and families, but also our workforce and meeting the needs of both. Would that be a fair summary of how the program's evolved?
And we can touch on this towards the end, but one of the things that we've realized is that leadership and mentoring and having a really stable team around the family is the key to success. So it's really the stability of that team and the confidence of that team, and that team to be able to access support from their peers and learn together, but also to have a mentor. It's kind of like a key worker model for the team, really. Yeah. So yeah. We've looked at a dedicated key worker mentor / leader, as opposed to having different people doing those roles. So we really have taken the principles of a key worker and looked at how can that also be wrapped around our team members so they feel like they're growing and thriving and supporting each other as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's one of my most favourite things about Everyday Independence is that often the models that we deliver to people in our communities is reflected in the model that the way in which we support our employees and our team members, which is similar to what I said in terms of the values earlier on. So Leanne, thank you. Please stay around, and as I gave you full permission to and want you to, chip in along the way throughout this evening. We like to keep it quite relaxed and casual to really demonstrate the way in which teams do work together. So the next part of this evening is that I'm going to introduce to you our panel. I'm going to introduce to you Mel Thompson and Amelia McKee. I'm going to start with you, Mel, and then Amelia will come to you just after we've introduced Mel. But Mel has worked in the field of early childhood intervention for most of your working career. I think it would be fair to say, Mel, your initial training was as an early childhood teacher, but you've also completed additional studies in special education and community support. I have known you even before you joined Everyday Independence, so I know that you're a passionate advocate for early childhood intervention and embedding best practice support in a meaningful way that has lasting change for children and families. So Mel, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Pleasure. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you. And I'm going to start with a question for you is that, I have introduced you, I suppose, talking a little bit about your career, but I'm really interested to understand what led you to Everyday Independence and what led you to your current role as a key worker lead.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I started my working career as an early childhood teacher and was really interested in supporting children with additional needs quite early on. So went back and did some additional studies in special education very early on in my career, and then moved into roles within not-for-profit organisations or community-based organisations, working with families and supporting staff as well in the work with in more localised people's homes and in the community, and embedding the early childhood intervention best practice model, as Leanne has mentioned. So I guess it felt like quite a natural progression to join Everyday Independence and be able to have my passion in practice and supporting team members with embedding their practice and helping them learn about what best practice is in early childhood intervention and support team members. And I guess hope that people get just as much enjoyment out of working in the early years space as that I have had for many years.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And absolutely, you are an incredible role model for all of our teams. So I'm delighted that you are here this evening, because we're going to get into the actual detail of what it looks like to be a member of this team and to be supported. But we're going to come to Amelia before we do that. Amelia joined Everyday Independence in 2019 now. So it's been, I think, over 4 years now. And you started, when you joined Everyday Independence, my understanding is with a diverse caseload, which included children and adults. But it wasn't long before you had a real passion working specifically with children and families. And you had a team leader and a career coach that supported you to work and start to work solely with children and really starting to utilize that early childhood support space. Yes, getting some nods here. But Amelia has really worked through the career program at Everyday Independence and is now what we call an advanced therapy mentor, supporting both key workers and therapy mentors, so allied health professionals as well. I don't know if I mentioned, Amelia is an occupational therapist by training, and you really work across New South Wales, but I think a lot of it is now probably extending nationally as well, Amelia. So I think to introduce you, I would like to, I always see your passion for supporting children and families as they really navigate those early crucial years of childhood. Would that be a fair introduction?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. And I'm going to ask you a very similar question to what I asked Mel, which is, can you tell us about what led you to your current role at Everyday Independence, and now that you really are an early childhood support advanced therapy mentor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started as an OT, like you said, working with children and adults. And whilst I did love working with both, I did have a really specific love of working with children and felt really passionate about supporting families, especially as they were navigating diagnosis for the first time or navigating NDIS for the first time as well. So being that person to basically start therapy. We work with a lot of families that have never had therapy before, and that's something I'm really, really passionate about supporting. So stepped into the role as a key worker. And since then, I've been able to really fine-tune my mentoring skills as well. So stepped into a mentor after that, where I was supporting new team members coming in, so new key workers coming in or new OTs coming in as well. And then since last October, I have been working in that advanced therapy mentor role. So in the role now, like you said, I'm supporting mainly New South Wales, our mentors on the ground. We've got an incredible team of mentors, well, organisation-wide, not just New South Wales, and team members as well, plus also dipping into induction support and things like that too. So yeah, it's definitely been an incredible journey over the last few years.
Fantastic. And I think just to make it really clear for our listeners this evening, we have a number of career pathways at Everyday Independence, and we do try to keep, from a cultural perspective, quite a flattened hierarchy. But so Amelia has come in really as a practitioner, as an OT. She's trained in the key worker model, still really works across both, which you'll see with the way this program has evolved, and then become a therapy mentor. So training people that are in that practitioner space. And then the advanced therapy mentor is actually the mentor that trains the mentors. So there's a really strong governance around how we continue to evolve our program, but to ensure that we have evidence-based practice across the organisation. So we can talk about career until the cows come home, but what people most commonly ask us is, but tell me about the role. What is it actually like to work as a key worker on the ground in the community? And I'm really interested to understand, what does a typical day look like? And can you even go as far to provide some examples for us about, you know, what a key worker or who a key worker might be supporting? Now, Mel, you're on the screen first, so let's start with you. But let's get down into it. What does it actually look like?
I love that you said, what does a typical day look like, Ingrid? Because I'm not sure if there is one. And that's the most exciting part, I think, about being a key worker, is that each day can look quite different. But we would generally be seeing, each key worker would generally be seeing sort of 3 to 4 children and families per day. So that's 3 to 4 appointments per day. And those appointments can be in families' homes. They can be out in the community, could be at a local park or a swimming centre or a playgroup setting, or in any number of early years settings or school settings as well. So you're predominantly working autonomously. And as Leanne mentioned, there'll be other team members that you work with to support you in ensuring that the strategies and the outcomes that you're working on with families are comprehensive, and that you are, looking at that whole child. But you are working very closely with others that are also supporting children. So it could be a parent or parents. We work with grandparents. Often there's siblings, and siblings are coming in and out of sessions. When you're working in an early years setting, you're generally the most popular person there because you're a novelty. So there are children coming up and asking, who you're there for, or what you're there for, or can you come and play with me? So it's when we are working in other settings, we are very much working in that capacity building model where we're using coaching and modelling and providing information and some direct sort of questioning, and to try and really understand the child and the child in the context of their family or the other settings that they're involved with. So each child and family, they do have an NDIS plan, and they have goals in their plan. But the key worker has really thorough discussions, and we use a variety of tools to help us understand the children, so that we are really targeting any supports that we're delivering to meet that individual child and family's needs.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I can even hear with your answer, often the teachers that come into our organisation and work as a key worker, they will often say to me they underestimated the amount of autonomy that they had, or how much they would be moving around, which is often different into being in a single environment. But also really value, I suppose, the amount of time that they get with individuals to be able to really dig quite deep beyond the educational setting gates, which is really appealing to them. So it's different. It would be fair to say it's very different, isn't it? But a lot of the skills are very transferable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very different. And I think, you get to work, alongside some incredible educators in some of those early years settings, and family members, and everyone has some different ideas and information and insights that they share with you. So bringing that all together is very important.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Ingrid,
so
can I just share
yes.
that funny? So once a key worker said to me, when I was a teacher, I was able to clear my inbox at the end of every day, or at least the end of every week. I loved being able to do that. She said, I just can't clear my inbox here. And it did make me laugh a little bit, because, we would all like to clear our inbox by the end of the day or the week. But actually, we're working with families and their lives. And a family's life is, that's just, it just evolves and it just develops and it just moves like our lives. And there's no such thing as the inbox being clear, because the weekend will come and it will create a whole lot of other stuff for the next session. So I did think that was a little bit funny.
So Leanne, I had the same. I had somebody say to me, I used to put my handbag down at 8:30 a.m. and then I would pick it up at 4 p.m. at the end of the day. And then when you're in this role, it's like your handbag probably has anywhere between 5 and 10 different locations throughout the day because you're moving around so much. So
the same as your
I think
lunchbox, Ingrid, I think.
Absolutely.
same as your lunchbox. Absolutely. So I think, and I think that is a really important thing for us to share with people tonight that are on this call, because it is a very different way in which you work, but you can translate it if you are sort of open to that change in that way of working. But Amelia, we're going to jump to you, and you've popped up on the screen, which is great. And just to tonight, everybody, Mel comes from a teacher's background. Amelia comes from an OT background. Yeah. And one of the things that is just so remarkable is that you'll see it from a different perspective, but then you'll see it all come together. And I think that symbiotic relationship between an allied health professional and a teacher, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's sort of 1 + 1 = 5, or is the magic source. So Amelia, let's for the first time cross to you about from a allied health professional perspective, what does it actually look like? What, I shouldn't say typical day, should I? Because there isn't one, I mean, what does it look like?
Yeah, some days are typical, some days definitely aren't. So as an allied health practitioner, as you said, we're working really, really closely with our key workers. Our key workers will create a plan with the child and the family right at the start of therapy. And in that plan, we will start to think about how regular our allied health practitioners might come in. So is it a couple of sessions right at the beginning to get things set up? Or are we needing some more frequent support as we go along? So a typical day for me, I might be conducting a joint session with a key worker. We really love to do our sessions together where possible. So for example, Mel might be working on a mealtime routine with a family, and then I might come in as the OT because maybe we're needing to look at I don't know, certain cutlery, or maybe we're needing to look at what that child's sensory needs are around mealtime. Or I've worked with lots of speech pathologists that might come in and give lots of great strategies and advice around certain words or sounds. And again, our key workers are then linking that to, well, what does this look like at mealtimes? What words can we use that start with the letter S? So really tying it in and bring it all together. These sessions are really collaborative. We're bouncing ideas off of each other, but also off the family as well, because the family is ultimately the one that has to put this in place. So really making sure that it's practical for them. So some of my sessions look like that. Sometimes I might be more remote, so I might jump in online if I'm not in that area for that day. It might be a phone call. Sometimes we'll have collaboration in the office as well, in our hubs where we'll sit down. So I might not even have to go out and see that family. I might have the key worker bring me the information, and again, we can nut out a bit of a plan together. So yeah, every day really does look different. There's families that I'll work with quite closely. There's families that I might see a little bit more sporadically because I know that the key worker's there tying everything together. So yeah, that's not really a typical day, but
no,
a typical month or a typical couple of months. Yeah.
And that's what I hear that the allied health professional often really loves, that sometimes they're working in a consultative role, other times they are right in there, at the coalface delivering therapy. So there's a lot of variety also in the way in which you work. So yeah, thank you. I've got another question for you now, which probably speaks to you more about your roles. So we understand that you're in leadership roles at Everyday Independence in terms of our early childhood support program. So as we've mentioned, Mel, you're the key worker lead, and Amelia, you're an advanced therapy mentor. So can you share with us your role in terms of supporting other members of the team? So if somebody in the audience tonight is thinking about joining Everyday Independence, how will they actually be supported, and what does that look like for somebody to access supports as a key worker or indeed a allied health professional that's part of the early childhood support team?
Would you like me to go first, Ingrid?
You can. It doesn't matter. We want to hear both perspectives.
So I guess as a key worker, you receive support from a dedicated therapy mentor that is local to where you're working. So at the hub that you'll be working from. And that therapy mentor will provide you with some supports on a regular basis and help you with practice, what it looks like on the ground. You can chat with your therapy mentor about participants where you might have some challenges, or you're feeling that you're needing some additional support. And it might be around mapping out your calendar, or doing some scheduling, or doing what we call our therapy planning. So planning the supports that we're going to provide, as well as the team members that we're going to be working with each of the children and families we support. So as well as having a dedicated therapy mentor, you also have opportunities to drop into what we call our everyday therapy mentoring. And that happens in the early childhood space. That happens 3 times a week, where you can drop into a session and you can chat with either an advanced therapy mentor, or a clinical or a practice lead. And you can discuss any issues or any challenges that you might be having, or also to share some really great achievements that have been made with families as well. And we also have a community of practice for our early childhood team. So all of our key workers and allied health team members participate in regular community practice, where we have a live chat where all key workers can ask questions and receive some great advice and information from other team members. We also have some dedicated learning opportunities through our community of practice as well. And recently, we've had sessions on particular, perhaps self-care tasks, toileting, feeding, also lots of information around language and communication and how to build those skills. So we generally bring those sessions together through feedback that's been received from therapy mentors or key workers, where there might be people feeling there's some gaps in knowledge. So we try and provide that information and use evidence-based resources and recent research, so people are feeling upskilled in those areas.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mel. So I think you really summarize that everybody has a dedicated therapy mentor. That's their go-to person on the ground. They come out often on visits with them. We'll hear a little bit more about that. But then we've got we're often at Everyday Independence, when we say drop in, we're actually talking about dropping into digital technologies. So everyday therapy mentoring is a digital room that you drop into, where there is a senior key worker or a very experienced practitioner sitting there, and communities of practice also we connect digitally around the country. So that's just some of the supports. Amelia, I know you're going to tell us even some more supports, and especially at a local level. Can you share with us that as well this evening?
Absolutely. So we have an induction program when everybody starts. So you're not expected to just go out there and see people without not seeing things, or tagging along with a practitioner first. So you'll have shadowing opportunities to go to other people's sessions and see what things look like. But you'll also have opportunities for your mentor to come out with you for your first sessions as well, so that they can model to you what a session looks like. And then you can give it a go while you've got somebody there as your support person. And I should mention as well, you do have some training videos before all of this as well. So you do have a bit of a background knowledge about what things will look like. Then ongoing mentoring still happens regularly, but it looks a little bit different. So it might be check-ins. We do really love to do some group mentoring as well. So bring together a few key workers and all bounce off ideas and strategies. Because whilst us as mentors have lots of great ideas, your teammates have some incredible ideas as well. So we really try to use that collaborative approach. We have a report review program as well. So when you're writing reports for the first time, you've got somebody to have a look over those and to bounce off any ideas about goal setting or questions like that. So we do wrap a lot of support around key workers when they're starting out, and our allied health practitioners as well. Equally, they receive similar support, but you do get to access that ongoing as well. So it is more intense in those first couple of months, but everybody, regardless of whether you've been here for 6 months or whether you've been here for 4 years like me, you all have a therapy mentor, which is incredible. So, and then Mel and I get to upskill our therapy mentors, which is really exciting as well. So providing them with the things that they need to do their job too. So lots of layers.
Absolutely, lots of layers. Very much.
Can I just talk about the high level? None of this happens unless the organisation fully support learning and development and opportunities for the team to come together, which they come together every Wednesday, and making sure that we've got all the quality and the safeguarding and the governance and registration, which is great. It's going to become a requirement for organisations that are working in this space, and incident investigation and management and all of that infrastructure that sits around people, so that you can just go and do the work that you love to do and get great outcomes. So try to take a lot of that noise away from people.
I completely agree, Leanne. I think, having even worked in the early years myself, you feel very safe being at Everyday Independence because of the infrastructure that is there to not only support you to be an excellent practitioner, but to also support you to be a competent practitioner that can then, recognize when something might be going wrong. So the opportunity for some of the things that we do see in families' homes, for example,
freedom of information. It happens with children. We need all of the reports, freedom of information, that we could take all of that noise away.
Absolutely. There's definitely some real safety in the governance that sits behind all of the things that we're talking about this evening. So we are going to ask you about, Mel and Amelia, about how the key worker model then aligns so well with the social model of practice, and how is Everyday Independence leading the charge for change in the early childhood intervention space?
I mean, I can go first this time. We can
go for it.
We can swap. So we work, well, first and foremost, we are a community-based organisation. So we're working with our children and families in the places where they're actually needing support. So if they're having trouble with meal times, we're going in at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whenever that meal time's occurring. If a child is having challenges at a shopping centre, we'll be doing a session at the shops or brainstorming strategies around that. So we really try to locate ourselves and base our sessions around those goal areas and what the family's wanting us to target. We also use a capacity building approach, which was mentioned before. So we're not just going in and doing our thing and leaving, and then, that child doesn't get any therapy support for the next week or next fortnight. We are leaving strategies with the family, but we're also building up the family skills or educator skills, whoever we're working with, to carry out those strategies while we're not there. So I might leave some strategies for meal times, and then that family would have practiced it 5 times by the time I go back the next week. So we really are linking things to the routines of our children and families. We're working in their environments, and we're following the goals that they're wanting to work on as well. So really providing that support too.
Fantastic. I think it's that therapy happens between therapy sessions, not just during therapy sessions, which is absolutely what we're trying to do, isn't it? And Mel, I can see you're about to jump in. I know it's an area you're very passionate about.
I was just going to say, I think we're also really fortunate here at EI that the organisation supports team members to participate in professional development, and so that we're ensuring that we are aligning the model and the supports that we're providing with up-to-date information and research. And recently I was fortunate enough to go to the conference on early childhood intervention. That was an Australia-wide conference that was held in Brisbane, and Amelia and I are also putting together some abstracts that we're presenting at a conference that's occurring next May, I think it is. So we are really encouraged to not only build our own knowledge and make sure that we are up to date with recent information, but also to share that within the sector as well. So I think that is really important. Share it internally as well as externally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is an immense pride amongst our workforce in being able to be thought leaders and to be able to share what it is that we are learning. So I'm going to ask you now, and I'm mindful of the time. So to our audience, we will be here until 7 o'clock, or maybe even just a touch afterwards. But I want you to share with me, and this is one of the reasons why, I think it's so important tonight to have a teacher and an allied health professional on our screen. Mel, why do you benefit from working with an allied health professional as a key worker? And then, Amelia, I'm going to flip the question and ask you, why do you benefit from working with a teacher? So the benefit to yourself as a professional, but perhaps also the benefit to the child and the family. And so why this model is, I suppose, really leading the charge for change.
Well, I think as a teacher, Ingrid, that we come with an extensive knowledge of child development and a whole range of different experiences depending on where we have worked. But that toolbox that we come with can grow immensely, and through working with other allied health professionals and also other teachers and habit coaches, that toolbox continues to grow and develop. And we have the opportunity through those shadowing opportunities and conversations and mentoring to continue to build your skills and knowledge. And each child and family is different that we're working with. So something that you think, oh, that might have worked with one family, you still might need some support in implementing that and working alongside another family, but perhaps, modifying some of the strategies. So I think that continual sort of growth of knowledge is important.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Amelia, flipping the question to you, because there's lots of teams around the country that have allied health professionals in a multi or an interdisciplinary team and haven't necessarily brought the teacher into the mix, which Everyday Independence has. How's it benefited you? And then how does it benefit families?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like I've learned so much off doing sessions with our key workers. There have been times as well that I've done sessions with our speech pathologists as well, or our physios too. So we learn so much off each other. And Mel mentioned that toolbox before, and we all start off with a certain level of knowledge, but we do, like a bit like sponges, we absorb what other people are doing. We're looking at, Mel did this really great strategy with so-and-so. I wonder how I could then adapt that to this child or this family as well. So I feel like I'm definitely a more well-rounded OT since working in this model. I feel like I definitely look more holistically. Yes, I might be coming in to support a key worker with motor skills or feeding or whatever it might be, but I'm also, because I have worked with educators so much and other practitioners so much, I am thinking about all those other areas as well, or noticing, something's going on there with their speech that I'm not so sure about. I need to go tap in with this person and see if that's something they can help me with. So we are, I think, both key workers and allied health practitioners looking really holistically at what's going on for a child and family. So that's how it's benefited me. For a family, it really streamlines things. We have some families that come to us that maybe have worked with 3 different service providers in the past. They've had to tell their stories multiple times again and again. So every time they see somebody new or join to a different company, they've got to rehash that whole story of how they ended up on the NDIS or what they're wanting to work towards. Whereas that person then that's the key worker. The key worker gets that first big conversation. They get to unpack those goals and what that looks like. And we get all that information. So when we're coming in to work on a certain goal area or provide advice, we can get straight to it. We don't have to waste that time, re-interviewing or re-going through those processes. So it really does streamline things for our children and families.
That's fantastic, because I think absolutely when, especially with early childhood, time is absolutely of the essence. And so to be able to get in there and get some quick wins, but also value for money is, we're going to hear more and more about this as practitioners, and for people to be having to repeat or duplicate things, I don't think our communities or any of us should be tolerant of that. So I really like this way that the model is coming together. Now, the next question's a little bit difficult because you only get to answer with a maximum of 3. I know that we could go on and on about this one, but for our listeners tonight, what are the traits that make a really good fit for a key worker or for an allied health professional that is going to work within the key worker model? So Mel and Amelia, you only get 3. I did give you a little bit of pre-warning about this, but 1, 2, 3. Leanne, you can have 3 as well. Okay, so let's go for it. I don't mind who goes first.
I'll jump in while my microphone's
you're going
off.
to have excellent. For our listeners, there's going to be 9 traits that are going to come your way in the next minute or so. So
perfect. I'll try to be quick. So you've got to be really flexible and adaptable. We have plans change last minute. We might have families cancel, session plans change. So you've got to be really able to think on your feet.
Right. Flexible and adaptable.
Absolutely. So that's number one. I would say you have to be really autonomous as well. We have spoken about it a little bit. There's days where I see the team. There's days like today where I didn't see anybody until this afternoon besides my family. So you've got to be really confident to be by yourself on the road. Sorry,
Excellent.
I'll keep moving.
Autonomous. Love it. Yep.
And I would say my last one is communication. So yes, we're working with children, but we are really having to communicate with families, stakeholders, educators as well. So you've got to be able to flip your communication between who you're talking to.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, because it's, you know, such an important trait of anything, but certainly when people are working with children and families, heightened emotions around these little people, communication absolutely is key. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to remember 9 in a row, but we've got flexible, adaptable, autonomy, and great communication. Mel, Leanne, you can fight it out for the next 3.
I'll go. So I think Ingrid, thorough knowledge of child development. So we're working with children holistically, and it's really important to understand what typical child development looks like, and where the children and families are that we are working on, and what next steps are to help them build next steps and develop their skills. So that thorough knowledge is really important.
Thorough knowledge.
Yep.
Number 2.
Passion for working with families. I think one of the things that sometimes people might think we're working predominantly with the children. We're working with the whole family, including siblings, as I mentioned before, and grandparents and aunts and uncles and whoever else might be home and part of that family's life. So passion for working with them. And also an understanding of the best practice key principles. So that family-centered, being strength-based, really important to see all of the things that children and families are capable of and use those as our starting point.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we've got thorough knowledge, passion for working with families, and really being able to embed and understand those best practice principles. Okay, Leanne, 3 from you, please.
So you need to have enormous compassion. And along with enormous compassion, you need to be non-judgmental. And I think if you're judgy, you can't have compassion. So I think that the two of them go together, and you need to be curious, and you need to be trying to understand, why is this happening? What is going on here? Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, tell me. So that real curiosity to try to really get to the bottom of things. And lastly, you need humility. I would love to put that first, but it's a bad one to lead with probably. But you need to leave your ego at the door, in the car, at the office. I don't know where you want to leave it, but you need to leave it somewhere. There's no place for ego in when you're working with children and families, because you might be the expert in education, or you might be an expert OT or speechy, but the families are the expert of their children. And there are, sometimes you think, oh, really? They don't look like they're the experts when I see what's being played out at homes, but they know their children best. So I think humility is really important.
I can see all 3 of those are so intertwined, really, aren't they? To really go in and just be non-judgmental, curious, and to have a humbleness about you, which really leads into my last question. And we'll go a little bit rapid fire on this as well, because we are coming to time. And it might be very much related, but for our listeners tonight, what are some of the things that people might find difficult if they join Everyday Independence, and what might they have to lean into in terms of to being able to really cross that chasm to become a really effective early childhood support practitioner? We're going to start with you, Mel. So just
I'll fire off one.
Yeah.
I think ensuring that the strategies, I think we all come with a whole toolkit again of strategies and ideas, but making sure that those strategies and ideas fit into that family's routine and what is happening for that family. So the coaching techniques that you might use, some of the ideas about building children's development, it is important that the family are on board and you're working really closely together and they are aligned with what the family are wanting to achieve.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. And I think that is a big shift when you've got a classroom or a group of, 15 children that you're managing compared to that one-to-one, that you really do have to adopt that individual approach. Amelia, let's go to you. What's something that someone might find difficult or need to lean into?
Mine sort of bounces off what Mel just said, but we've really got to meet families where they're at. We might go in and we might think we know the solution, or we might see what we anticipate we'll need to do, but we've got to meet that family where they're at. We have a lot of families that are still coming to terms with their child's diagnosis. They're still coming to terms with the NDIS. So our strategies might be quite slow to start. We might be really just trying to build up families' confidence in knowing how to support their child. So that's a really big one as well, is sometimes we really have to pare things back too.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's another great point. Leanne, have you got one? What's something that some or a couple of things that people might find difficult?
Scheduling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Scheduling and scheduling.
Great. So we've got scheduling a few times, and I would absolutely agree with you. We've talked tonight about autonomy. A lot of people join this role because of the workplace flexibility that an education setting or a clinic setting doesn't offer. And it's like, I'm going to have all of this autonomy, but you actually, within that autonomy, have to be disciplined and create routines that are going to work for you and the people that we serve. So that's a really another
but we've got everyone's
one.
back. We've got people's back with that one. It's just, and so there's loads of strategy, loads of support. We've got a great admin team as well to help. So there's a lot of support to overcome the issue, but I think people are just shocked at the start. It's like, I've got this list of, 15 to 20, 25 children and families, and then I have a calendar and I have to work out how it all fits together. So whilst we've got lots of strategies to make it easy, I think it is a bit of a shock.
Yes. And I think when people come into a job and they're new, they often want to prove that they're worthy of that job. And so they really try to be quite independent in that. And we're actually asking you to be interdependent in your role. And actually, we value working together and asking for support as opposed to being what, sometimes we would call a lone ranger. So and we talk a lot about that actually at induction, that you really need to be interdependent when you work in this way. Okay, this is exciting. I could keep going, but we are at 7 o'clock. So I am going to ask Cherie if you wouldn't mind sharing the screen again. And I am actually going to take our audience through another 5 or so slides. Sorry, gosh, that's not even English. 5 or so slides very quickly, because you can actually find all of this on our website. So we don't really need to go through it tonight. But we are deeply passionate about having people join our team that really want to work in this model. If you do come and work at Everyday Independence, the promise that we can actually give to you is that you will be working in a future fit way. So this is the way in which the early childhood support service needs to move forward. You won't be training in what I call old ways or old technologies. And social model is absolutely the way that is recognised going forward. We've seen it with multiple reviews that are coming out from the NDIS and other places in the sector. So really, at Everyday Independence, our promise to you is to train you in a future fit way, to really invest and innovate in the way in which we work. And we do have great career opportunities and great earning potential. The workforce tells us that they want, sorry, Sheree, we'll just take it back, but the workforce tells us that they want cause, community, and career. And I think our Everyday Independence model, but early childhood support services certainly delivers that. You will work in an incredibly impactful place. You will be part of a community that is driving the charge for change. And there are great career opportunities, as you can really see with Mel and Amelia tonight. Our support model we have talked about tonight is on the next slide. We use a person-centered approach, but there's lots of different ways, and I won't go through them tonight, that we will support you. They will be on the ground at hub level, and then they will be more central in terms of connecting digitally. And then, as Leanne mentioned as well, there's layers of governance behind it as well to make sure that we can remove the noise from you and make sure that you are safe and competent to go out there and really support families. So again, you can see more of that on our website. Cherie, I'm going to fly through, but there are perks, absolutely. Flexibility, well-being, growth is really important to us. I think the next slide is going to show you that it's going to show you about remuneration, super important part of the role. We have a flexible remuneration structure where people can really start to stack how they would like to be remunerated. You can see more of that on our website, or I'm also going to drop into the chat tonight my Calendly link where you can invite me to a meeting with you for 15 minutes and I can talk with you very specifically about what remuneration might look like for you, because especially for some of our teachers, that's something where they need to understand a little bit more about it before they might think about making this move. From an allied health professional perspective, it's probably more understandable, but we do have ways that you can enhance your earning potential. So the Calendly link, I will pop in the chat in just a moment. Please, we're happy to talk about salaries. Jump on and talk to me. Everyday Wellbeing and Inclusion is a part of every month at Everyday Independence. This calendar just demonstrates that we have that. And Cherie, we'll go to the last slide, but Everyday Wellbeing and Inclusion and Hub Life is absolutely a part of what we do. It is that when I talked about career, community, and cause, that community is going to be really important in you working in this way. So this is the final slide for this evening. We have arrived here. If you want to just speak to us, if you are just simply curious about what could it look like to work in this model, do I have some of the attributes and the skills, or what does the salary look like, or is it something that I could fit within the context of my life? We're always really happy to talk to you about that. I'm going to pop the Calendly link right now in the chat. What a Calendly link is you can actually just click on that link. It will take you straight to my diary and you can book in and we can speak about what the opportunity could look like for you. But again, we've got our central numbers there, and again, you can go direct to our website to understand more. So that does bring our event to a formal close. We are here to answer any questions for anybody that might like to ask a question now. You can put it in the Q&A or you can pop it in the chat. And we are, I think, probably sums it up, grateful that you spent the time with us tonight. We've had lots of people stay on for the whole of the event, so thank you very much in fact, we've had nearly everybody stay on for the whole of the event, so that's always probably the best feedback. But we are really excited about in 2024 our hubs having early childhood support teams that are going to be able to go out there and support communities across Australia. So thank you, Leanne, for joining us tonight. Amelia, thank you for joining us as well. And Mel, I know you also put in preparation for tonight, so really appreciate you being here. And Cherie, CJ, and there's another team behind the scenes. Thank you also for supporting us to bring tonight's event to our audience. So thank you very much.